Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like it need Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like it need Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off.
Hello everybody, I am Ryan, the original outlaw of the airwaves and your host to the hyper-anomalous esoteric research organization podcast known as Hero Paranormal. We are here to bring you the fringe elements of society, secret societies, ufology, cryptozoology, and anything else that just doesn't quite fit in the boxes that we're supposed to be looking in. I'd like to shout out to everybody listening today. You guys are the true heroes, and we really appreciate your support. If you haven't, definitely go to heroparanormal.com and check out the website. Check out the gear we have. Hats, t-shirts, you name it. Utah UFO Hunters stuff. All kinds of stuff. And that helps keep the power on, keep the guests coming. And there's also a archive button right there that you can listen to all of our past podcasts, or at least the non-patron ones. If you want to be a patron, for about the price of a designer cup of coffee a month, you're in. You're part of the insider group, and you get all the content. And when I say that the patron-only episodes are the spicier ones, they are the jalapenos. They're the stuff that's even harder to wrap your head around, so definitely check that out. We take donations, whether it's $1, $2, $5, doesn't matter. You don't have to have a recurring payment. You can go on there and just give a one-time donation. You just go back to your account and hit stop recurring payment, and that's it. You donated once, you're supporting us, and I highly appreciate it. Also, check out the research project, just something I do for fun on the side. It's spacewolfresearch.com, and you can check that out as well. Today we have a special guest. Then again, I always try to bring you the special guests, but this guy's awesome. He's an author, Jason Gleaves, ufologist, researcher, international author on Facebook, Twitter, Google. You can find him everywhere. He's the author of UFO Photo and the newer book, The UFO Umbrella. He was born in 1969 in Liverpool, England, and he's served time in the Royal Air Force, British Aerospace Airbus Division. He has a high expertise in modern civilian and military worldwide aircraft armaments, recognition, and visualization. He's also contributed over the last 10 years on numerous UFO pages, media, and has carried out photographic image video footage analysis on unidentified flying objects and associated anomalies. He's written and contributed towards British ufologist paranormal researcher Steve Mera for his training course in the field of operatives on image recognition and image analysis of anomalous objects and phenomena. This new book, The Ufology Umbrella, follows his first book, UFO Photo, and subjectively opens up the topic of close encounters and the subcategories entailed within. Jason Gleaves does an excellent job of this, and he is part of the Flying Disc Press. Some of our favorite people out there. You may know Philip Mantle, and we just love the guys over at Flying Disc Press. We had Philip Mantle on not long ago on the podcast, and hope to have him back. These are a good group of guys and on the cutting edge of everything ufology. So without further ado, Jason, welcome to the Hyper-Anomalous Esoteric Research Organization podcast.
Hi Ryan, thanks for the invite.
I'm always excited to have anybody from the Flying Disc Press on. You guys are such a great group of guys, and I had Philip Mantle on not long ago, and I just think that the work and the quality of the books coming out of the Flying Disc Press is far and above a lot of what we're seeing in ufology right now. So I really appreciate it, Jason.
Yeah, that's great. Philip Mantle, he's a great guy. he's been in ufology a long time, so he's teaching everybody the ropes, sort of thing, to getting the books out, and like you say, trying to get the factual books out with detailed analysis and stuff like that.
That is great, and I'm very, very interested, and I think your new book deserves a lot of praise because you tackle it from a totally different perspective than most UFO books, and you cover that under its very title, the ufology umbrella.
Yeah, it really followed on from the first book. The first book, again, was via, I got a UFO-only Facebook page, which on Twitter and all that. So that's where I really started the posting and getting UFO stories and things out, analysis of photographs, etc. And then the first book, UFO Photo, was really a step forward, like a DIY approach to ufology for people who wanted to really take note of how photos are analysed and how you go in that route, if you know what I mean. And then the second book was the follow-on again, really the ufology umbrella, where I wanted to go into the separate categories of close encounters, because most people don't realise there are 7 categories in total. A lot of them intermingle with each other depending on the sighting and experience, but like I said, people didn't realise how many there were.
I think that it's very interesting how you also, part of the title, kind of the subtitle, is Close Encounters Are Not Enough. And that is so true, because most people are not aware of the 7 different kinds. And I like that in the book you go through and explain that for the readers. And
yeah,
could you explain a little bit to our listeners? Because I think a lot probably aren't aware of that as well, some, or at least some.
Yeah, can do. Like I said, it's 7 separate categories. People that have gone into ufology. I'm just trying to find my notes. Hang on a second.
Mm-hmm. And I know that was it Hynek, I believe, that did the first 3, correct?
It was, yeah. Dr. Hynek. He actually brought out the first 2 and then the third. And the third was really in conjunction, really, when Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the Steven Spielberg film, came out, and he did have a cameo role in that movie himself. But he was only saw 1, 2, and 3, and then really going on from there, it's really experiences and things that have happened, beyond the 1970s. Forward really, with ufology itself. Do you want me to go through some of the categories in detail?
Oh, that would be great. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you've got your first Close Encounters of the First Kind. Again, that's a sighting in which one or more UFOs, aerial phenomena, described as sources. So that's not attributed to known modern-day tech as we would know. So you're really talking about unexplained lights, and it's probably the most common of all the sightings, really. CE2, that is a UFO that's been witnessed or seen, but it's associated known or sometimes unknown phenomena that accompanies it. So you're talking really crop circles, terrain or landscape damage, scarred or mutilated animals, livestock. So you're really going down that road, another completely different avenue. Electronic or mechanical interference or damage. And then you've got catalepsy, which is it's like a trance state, a paralysis of the body, seizures. And then that goes into some sort of unnatural physical occurrence. So they're quite detailed as such. You can go into CE3, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So that's a visual sighting of a UFO. So that's seen spotted to further include a visual confirmation as such. So really, that's 1, 2, and 3. Like me to carry on?
No. Let's do, because I think, although there is the argument, I think a lot of people that are in ufology say number 3 is kind of the catch-all, and everything above and beyond that is covered under 3. But there is some intricate, different details that do kind of... it's a way of knowing exactly what you're talking about, is what I found. Because sometimes, 3 is kind of a very wide spectrum.
Yeah, well, that's what I've found really myself, that a lot of these categories do intermingle with each other. So you could have 1/4 or 2/7. They can, depending on what they are. But that's probably why Hynek didn't want to really take it any further, because the first 3 do cover quite a wide range. Would you like me to carry on?
Sure. Yes, please, Jason. Absolutely.
Yeah, so CE4, that's human abduction by extraterrestrial beings or being. So you've got different kinds of visitations. So it could be where you're not actually taken on board a UFO. So you have sort of an out-of-body experience that people have said that they've had. And you can be in the custody of an ET while you're still on Earth, and they could be on a craft. So again, it's, controversial, but, it's still a different category. CE5, it's bilateral contact with an ET entity. So you're through some audible form of communication, so telepathy or something like that. And the contact, it can be initiated by either a human or an ET. It can go both ways. CE6, that is UFO or its inhabitants that are directly causing injury or death to a human being. So it's not an awful lot in that, but there are actually cases attributed to that where I've heard of downed military craft that have been recovered, and they've had human body parts on board. So, whether that's linked to that. And then probably the most controversial of all is CE7. That's in which a human and an extraterrestrial mate, so sexual intercourse or artificial insemination, and that's to produce a hybrid being. So, they're quite a wide range of categories from 1 to 7. And people need to know really, what they're looking at.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and it's a good way to know what you're looking at. And I do think it's funny that the most controversial is usually, when it comes to human beings, involves sex in some way, shape, or form. That's always the truth. I was very impressed with understanding the space flight and the theory of hyperspace dimensional travel. And I was wondering if it's okay if I read a paragraph that is it. I think you nailed something that a lot of people try to avoid. And
yeah, certainly.
Okay, yeah. And it goes, let's see here. It's, I believe the gods are actually physical forms that are created in the universe by creation itself. Possibly, just like everyone else, the gods are actually humans that are up very on the highest development of knowledge. Their knowledge of the elements and the laws of nature and the laws of creation are so high, but it seems and appears to the general populace that they are creating things when mostly they're just manipulating or generating things because of a much higher knowledge of rule force, the real creative force, which is throughout the entire universe. And this would explain so much in this area of interest.
Yeah. Well, like you say, people look at, well, you really got to imagine on the sense of an ET as a god as such, and then, primitive Earth going back to the ancients who didn't understand what they were looking at, and they can see that the gods can manipulate and understand things that they can't. So again, it's really just putting things into context of, you know, the gods were the ETs who were just highly advanced.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is like you said, a lot of it is like the ancients. It's what we call things, and I think people get so hung up on names because, you know, you say gods, and that's really just saying someone higher than ourselves. And people get offended. People get, oh no, and you know, there's got to be gods with a small g and a capital G, and every whim that is, you know, human comes out, and the conversation turns to muck. And I do really like that you clearly, you know, explain that this is very relative. These things are relative, and I like that word, the rule force, kind of the real creative force that is throughout the entire universe. That was, I think, very dead on.
Yeah.
Something else that was very interesting, I thought, in not to just go all over the place, was the frequencies and UFO sightings and the different hertz. And could you go into that a bit, Jason?
Yeah. Well, again, I believe, just through my research, really, it's just one thing that I've actually been led towards, really, is frequencies and sightings and everything is pretty much linked together. It goes, if you look at the electromagnetic spectrum table, human beings can only see in a certain spectrum of light, so we can't see radio waves or microwaves or infrared, ultraviolet or X-rays or anything like that. We can just see in a very short band. So when people see UFOs, well, if you look at it another way, when people contact me with an image that needs analysing, they would contact me and say, well, when I took the photograph, I couldn't see any UFO or anything in the image, but later when I went back and reviewed the image, there was the UFO. And I think at the time, you're looking at things on a different waveband to what the UFO is. So when you go back and look at it on a digital camera or whichever way you've taken the photograph, that can read that visual, that frequency as such. So, and it goes further than that. You know, you get a lot of musicians who, famous musicians especially, they're in the news where they've seen UFOs and come forward and said they've seen this. When all musicians can read music on a certain level, they've got a higher feel for frequencies and being able to read the music. So again, that's, you know, I believe it's all to do with different levels of frequency, what you can actually see. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's all intertied together. And then also there's the other side where more and more people are actually coming forward saying they're getting the ringing in their ears, where, you know, it could be tinnitus, obviously, that type of thing, but also it's a higher state of frequency that people are being woken up to, probably what's going on around them.
I couldn't agree more about the musicians. And I mean, historically, who comes to mind right off the bat is Robbie Williams. But historically, there's a lot of these connections between frequencies and music. And, you know, the musicians, even in some systems, are considered up there higher than the average individuals, the artists, and they're up there with the priests and such. And I think that the ability to kind of key in on these things that are audio phenomena or the like there could be something there. I also, I think it's interesting, the mechanical sounds, the ringing in the ears. These are things that are oftentimes and commonly associated with areas of high strangeness. And sometimes people even hear them underground or what they think is underground, because a lot of this is perspective, isn't it?
That's it, yeah. You know, and again, it's things that more and more people are waking up to what is happening around them, their environment and surroundings. And that's just one part of it that's actually coming forward, that people are more and more identifying with that phenomenon that's happening to them.
Mm-hmm. Is with the Hertz, because I think that there's something about that energy. I was also mesmerized by the fact that all throughout the universe, each planet, I mean, there are different frequencies to all these celestial bodies, and in our humanism, we tend to forget that, and it reminds me a lot, and I believe this is pretty common. You mentioned that oftentimes you take pictures of something and the craft won't show up. And this happened to me. I was with my mother and we were taking pictures of what appeared to be, well, it was very strange. It appeared to be a funnel of what appeared to be dark bugs in a field. And it just looked like a funnel of bugs going up into the sky or coming down to the ground. I didn't know which. And there was 2 or 3 of these funnels. And as I took pictures with my cell phone, the pictures weren't something I looked at until about 60 seconds later as we were going down the road. And I said, Mom, turn the car around, look. And when I showed her, as you said, there appeared to be craft above. Yet at the time, we saw absolutely nothing. And I recently watched, it was one of Darcy Weir's new Beyond the Spectrum, a new documentary, and they kind of go into these individuals that are catching glimpses, usually, like you said, through cell phones, of things that appear to be dimensional, but we can't see them with the human eye. This is fascinating to me.
Yeah, and it's just people generally coming around to this, things that are happening around them. They probably always happened over the years. It's just the technology's caught up now. And, cameras, digital cameras especially, the chips inside them are getting more and more advanced. And they can see these things that we visually can't see. So, again, it's great that, you can, especially through research, you can find these things out. But all this information is on the internet. Everybody can just go out there. I always say to everybody, don't take what I say as gospel. Go out and find out for yourself.
Mm-hmm. The pilots that were seeing the UFOs here in the United States, and I'm sure this is happening throughout the world. Oftentimes they're looking through this FLIR imagery and they see them, and they're not able to see them with their naked eyes. And I think it reminds me a lot of, not to get off topic, but the Hermetic laws and that everything has a vibration. And you mentioned this in your book, that a good example is like, the beam me up Scotty. If the different particles of the body, which is really just matter at a different vibration, and that the similar method could be used for a spaceship or similar type of craft moving across galaxies, for example.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I believe that you can't get the vast distances that we look out into the stars, and these other galaxies that they're literally light years away from us. So it's virtually impossible at the speeds that we're traveling in our rockets now to get there. In numerous lifetimes. So you've got to look beyond the way we travel, because ETs wouldn't travel the way we would. They're, instantaneous. So a way, like I said, to explain it is the beam up Scotty Star Trek analysis, where you literally you're beamed from one part of the galaxy to the next, and it's instantaneous. And we've got to stop thinking of ETs and UFOs as nuts and bolts. We've got to start thinking outside the box. We've got to start going, multi-dimensional and down that road as well now.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And I don't doubt for a minute that military is trying to reverse engineer what they are seeing with nuts and bolts, but that may not be the best method. And I think that the ideal is exactly what you're talking about. And I wanted to ask you, Jason, you have devoted an amazing amount of time to this specific effort. Your bio is just unfathomable, and I'm very impressed. And it made me wonder, have you had any experiences yourself, or what first led you down this field?
Yeah, I've had quite a few. I've had numerous sightings and experiences myself. The first one happened really when I was 7 years old, and I had a sighting with my sister in Liverpool in the UK, and we were playing upstairs at a relative's house, and we both saw a disc-shaped object outside the window, and this thing just stayed there. It was so bright. It was really luminous and lit up, but it wasn't bright enough that you couldn't actually look at the object without hurting your eyes. It was okay. And then this thing took off at high velocity, and we just carried on playing like nothing had happened. And I'd actually forgotten about it. It was only later my sister, she actually reminded when I got more into this research of UFOs and everything. And she said, "John, do you remember the sighting we saw in Liverpool?" And I said, "Oh, yeah." It sort of came back to me slowly, and more has. And in the book, I have wrote a piece on it, and we've actually sat down together and drew what we thought we saw at the time, and and gone down that road.
That's amazing. Yeah, there usually is something to that, how you can somewhat forget, or you, I don't know if it's just put out of mind. I've noticed that myself. And I wanted to bring something up a little off topic, but it's back to these pilots and the tic-tac and it's everything that is just consuming the media right now, and other images that the To the Stars Academy and the Navy and frequenting our airwaves and our TV screens. And there have been some people who have come forward in Europe saying that there have been very similar craft, if not some of the exact same images, actually, in some cases, that were actually seen there first. And are you aware of any of this, or have you heard of any of this?
I've seen one that I'm actually going to show. I'm going to be speaking in 3 weeks at my first conference. I go to a lot of conferences, as many as I can, and have done for years, but this will be the first time that I've actually stood up and spoke at a conference, Lapis, in Blackpool here in the UK. And I'm actually going to show a photograph there of a tic-tac UFO, or shaped UFO, that was taken out of the cockpit of a military Royal Air Force Tycoon aircraft, and you can see it's following an Su-7, I think, an Su-27. I think it's the Russian fighter jet, and they were in a joint exercise over Estonia, and you can see a tic-tac UFO that's actually following the two aircraft. This thing with the tic-tac UFOs that have been brought forward to the Stars Academy in America, the only thing I say with this, it's all great and it's all positive coming forward for the world of ufology, but when it first came out, on the actual reading of the aircraft, that you can see the altitude and the aircraft speed and the horizon and everything, all the pilot information. Down the right-hand side, you can actually see the word slave. Now, when I first saw this footage, little alarm bells rang in my head, being ex-military, that another word for slave in military terms is drone. Now, I'm wondering, I just thought whether it was a military covert drone they were following or something. So, but, I'm not trying to kick the subject of the to the Stars Academy coming forward. I think it's all positive, but there's just little things that I had little alarm bells ringing in my head when I saw it.
I noticed that. I noticed that myself, and I'm right there with you. It does not seem, well, like you said. I think the overall idea is good, and it's great that ufology is finally getting some of the attention that it deserves. And it's hard to separate the wheat from the chaff and all that. But I think overall, absolutely, there's something there. Another thing that I wanted to, if it's okay to read from your book, is another paragraph that I thought was very on point. And it kind of goes into, I don't want to call it, well, it's basically about creation and spiritual energy. And it reads, I believe creation is an original form of spiritual energy in our universe and beyond, not to be confused with religion, which I also believe is man-made. As mentioned above, all interlinked regarding matter in all its energy forms. Creation starts with an idea. A good example for this, making a drink for yourself, starts with an idea, then condensed and converted into a thought, which is converted into solid matter, the actions of making a drink, for example. I believe this is the same principle for everything in how the universe and multiverse are born and created. And I think this, again, without getting into religious beliefs and all that, this is really an energy dilemma that we're talking about, creationalism and matter, and how these craft or dimensional entities are entering and exiting our space as they wish. And this is really creation. They're obviously manipulating the time and space around them. And this has been somewhat accomplished by human beings in the past, or at least allegedly has been. When you start, unfortunately, going down some of these religious or spiritual realms, you hear of these ascended masters that can be seen in two places at once, or levitate, or basically any form of manipulating the matter around them. Why is it that society is so hard-pressed to not look at this creation or manipulation of time and space? This is something that the majority of society is so closed off to. Is that due to the programming and the religion and the man-made effects?
Yeah, I think it's definitely some sort of programming, because, from the word go, when you go to school, and even before that, kindergarten and, infant school, whatever terms you want to put it in, you're set on a programmed route of being told this is right, this is wrong, this is black, this is blue, and you have to go with the flow. And if you go against the system, you're a troublemaker, or you question anything, then again you're causing trouble to the system, the rotten apple, the bad apple. So you've got to think outside the box. Where really, religion, like I said, I'm not religious myself, and certainly don't want to offend anybody, but it's just my opinion. Religion is a man-made thing, and before all that, you've got to think of, where things are actually, like I said in the book, where matter and, you can bring forward about the book. Hello? Still there?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I just went blank.
No,
it's yes, I'm still here.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It seems like we lost you for a moment.
It's all right.
Yeah.
We're back on now, aren't we?
Back on. It sounds good now.
Okay, that's good.
The last I heard was, that a lot of this is probably that intolerance because it's programmed by the education system or the religious.
Yeah, and it's religion is a man-made thing, and I think it causes more trouble than anything. Religion. Most wars are fought over religion. It's to me, we got to look way beyond that. And like you said before, what I explained in the book, everything starts with a thought, and then it becomes reality. You do something in your day, it's a thought in your mind, and you go on and do it. So you've got to think on that level, on that frequency as such, and it can only be good. It can only be good for everybody.
A question, Jason, that a lot of people are torn on, and you mentioned it for a moment, is a lot of people, when it comes to things like crop circles or cattle mutilations, they step away and they don't want to discuss those particular parts of ufology. Now, is that because they don't categorize it as ufology? What are your thoughts on that? You've devoted so much time to this. You probably have more of an idea than most.
Well, the crop circles, again, you can go down the road again where people fake crop circles, they're man-made. And then there are people who actually research it in more detail, they've become real experts on it. A good friend of mine, Robert Holson in the UK, he's investigated a lot of crop circles. And if you go into the real ET crop circles, that have been produced by ETs, not human, the actual stalks are actually bent in such a way where the knuckles, the nodes of the stalk, are not damaged in any way. They're just split, and the crop still grows. It's still growing. It's not, it won't die off at all. Again, some of the actual patterns and designs that have been made, especially down in Wiltshire here in the UK, they're amazing, and whether they're actually made by humans or at the time, it's difficult to say. And again, approaching what you've just said about the animal mutilations, I mean, it's just not a nice side of ufology if that's the case. Is it ET that are actually doing this to animals for scientific purposes or whatever? It's just not a nice side, and that's probably why people will shy away from this area, because some of the pictures I've seen are quite gory of the animals and what have actually been done, and again what have been done to human beings on similar things with abductions as well. So, like you say, it's not a nice part of ufology. Let's say that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I wanted to touch on some of the consciousness involved with a lot of these sightings and how the observer seems to be so key. Oftentimes, looking at this when the veil is pulled back and you see craft or you see these intriguing, puzzling visions, is consciousness involved in your opinion?
Yeah, definitely, because you've gone up in the frequency levels, and especially a lot of ETs, especially a lot of people I've had contact me who have had interactions or experiences with ETs, have all said very similar things or of similar things of nature, where, again, it's the frequency levels have changed and consciousness, you're going up the levels. I mean, a good friend of mine, Peter Maxwell Slattery, Australian ESETI, and then you've got James Gilliland ESETI. They both go into great detail about the consciousness, the way people are actually coming around to being on the same level, and the ETs are interacting with them because of that reason.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you bring that up. I like Peter and what he does. And the interesting thing, coming back to that creative force or that this consciousness that's allowing people to communicate, oftentimes, even biblically in the Bible, is mentioned. And they mention the Elohim, and yet people completely embrace this when it's in biblical form. However, when it comes to the UFO phenomena, it seems to be kind of pushed to the side. And I think that there must be some kind of a connection there, because there's there's something there.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I was lucky enough a couple of years back to go to the BAFTAs in London when Eric Van Daniken came over for his 50th anniversary talk. So a lot of people in ufology in the UK were invited along, and it was a great night. And one of the things he actually came up with in this talk was he'd actually got hold of a Bible that was 300 years old. And he said if you actually put it in relative to a Bible that was wrote today, he said they're completely different books. The things that were wrote in them, I think of the way they've been changed as well over the years to suit mankind, if you really want to say that. So, yeah, religious thing. We say this. It's a programming. It's people are happy to do their day-to-day mundane lives, if you want to say that as well. They're happy to go to work, come home, watch their favourite TV shows, and anything else out of the ordinary that falls into their world becomes an obstacle to them. They don't like it, and the happy medium's gone. Mm-hmm. So, it's all about waking up. It's all about waking up, really.
I agree. And I wanted to bring something up, Jason, that, 46 years ago today, the month of October, a United States case, the case of Calvin Parker and Charles Hickson being victims of a close encounter in Mississippi. Your thoughts? It seems like this is a very well-documented alien abduction case, and I'm sure you know the one I'm talking about. Does that prove beyond a reasonable doubt that such events are indeed real?
Well, it helped certainly with the evidence that's been brought forward. I mean, you can go and listen to Kelvin where he'll talk on other shows. I don't know if you've had him on your show. He's a great guy. He's really honest guy. You can believe what he's saying. He's not doing it for the fame or fortune. He's in it just to get out what is actually he's had a raw deal over his life over this. And the information that's coming forward with the help, with Philip Mantle's research into it, and he's really, other people have had the same sightings on the same date or around that time. Other people saw what happened, and the recordings when they were being interviewed by the police at the time, and the police actually left the recording going in the room secretly to try and catch them out. And all that time through that they just carried on saying what they'd seen. They didn't want to come forward and say what they'd seen. And, it's on similar par with what happened with Travis Walton. Mm-hmm. He's, same type of guy, same sort of experiences taken on board a craft, etc., experimental or being experimented on. I just think it's a very truthful, honest account of what happened.
It does remind me a lot of the Travis Walton case. I have a close friend who is friends with one of the other individuals that was there for the Travis Walton case, Steve Pierce. And what's so amazing about that case is these guys don't even like each other, really. They really don't. And yet, like you said, their stories are 100% congruent. And it just reminds me a lot of the close encounter Calvin Parker experienced in 1973. And Hynek had a lot to do with that case. Didn't he look into that?
He did, yeah. He went right over the case at the time. Philip's got a lot of information. He's just, apparently there's a recording come forward as well, of some other recording I'm still waiting to hear more about. So like I said, so much is coming forward. It's, it makes it more of a concrete case in ufology. And again, it was wrote about a long time ago, and it's just really, I things get forgotten about, and you've got to regurgitate that information and get it back out there and get the public interest.
Mm-hmm. I agree. There's a lot of it's not even coincidence, because it's just so similar. It makes you wonder what is being done to these individuals, and it seems like it's been done throughout the ages. And I have to ask, and I have a huge interest in this, but what are your thoughts of portals, like in Earth's magnetic field? Is this part of the scenario, or how does that equate or come into, areas like that are known? And I know they exist also in Europe, throughout the world, really. These areas that are doorways into the unknown.
Yeah. I believe the portals are real, and they're all linked as well through certain sightings around the world. You can look back to the Bermuda Triangle. They were probably some sort of portal. And again, we go back to the way we think that ETs travel across the universe themselves. They've got to use that sort of technology. Whether they're a natural phenomenon, I don't know. Whether they're manipulated to get them from A to B across the galaxy, universe. But I believe, they're out. And again, one of the slides I'll be showing, or a couple of the images I'll be showing at my talk soon, is actually one in... there was a sighting in Lanzarote, which is one of the Canary Islands, and it was taken by a local resident, and he saw a craft that came through a portal. And when I've actually analysed certain images, you can see the larger disc-shaped object that has actually come through the portal, and then you've got a smaller one that has exited the bottom of the disc-shaped object. But when I actually analysed one of the images and inverted it, you could actually see above, there's like a sun-shaped object above it, and apparently that was where the craft came from and went to after the sighting. And the important thing about this photograph really is it's directly above the craft, but to the left is the direction where the sun is. The sun was, it definitely wasn't the sun, and the sun was up into the left-hand corner, because on the dome-shaped object that came out of the disc-shaped craft, you can actually see the sun reflection on the top, so you can see the direction of the sun. So again, it's another interesting photograph that nobody's ever seen yet, so I'm going to try and get some photographs out there for people to see. They've never seen those type of things before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the photographic evidence is mind-boggling sometimes. It's amazing. And I wanted to ask your opinion, I guess would be more than anything, about many of the ancients or indigenous elders share stories about star people, living underground or living inside the earth. This has been handed down for generations. I believe the word Anunnaki actually means ant people. And what are your thoughts of that all over the world?
Yeah, I believe there are bases all over the world, underground bases especially. And I don't mean military bases, I mean ET bases, because, I'm sure they've lived here long before we were here. They've been here a long time. I know at James Gilliland, you've got the SETI Ranch near Mount Adams, and a lot of the craft, I've actually analysed footage for James, where somebody had actually took video footage of a craft leaving the mountain at night time, and it's travelling probably on excess over 1,000 miles an hour as it's leaving the mountain itself. So they, again, like James has said also, that he believes that there's a base within Mount Adams itself. And again, Mount Shasta, there are places all over the world, UFO hotspots, where people see things as well, and bases. I believe there are underwater bases because most of our ocean is undiscovered. The depths as well that they can probably go to. Yeah, it just goes on and on, really. That's really like you said, that's why I called the second book the ufology umbrella, because that's the way I see ufology. It's a bit like an umbrella. The word umbrella is the ufology word, and off that cascades lots of different categories from abduction, sightings. You can just go on and on and on.
Mm-hmm. Going a little bit off of that and the unusual and strange happenings around the world, I'm really interested in a particular area. I live in Nevada, but I'm from Utah, and there's a particular area in Utah that experiences just a wide smorgasbord of different. It's almost like a paranormal, everything you can imagine. And what's odd is a lot of UFOs, a lot of this quote unquote portal activity, and then you have things that are thrown in the mix, like, for all lack of a better word, things like werewolves or dogmen. How do these things have anything to do with the equation, or is it just that these areas where the veil is pulled back, or you're open to more? Do you have any thoughts on that, or have you experienced anything cryptozoological, or have any theories on that?
I think it's all linked in one way or another, the unexplained phenomena as such, because you can talk about ghosts and, like you said, the werewolves and vampires, all these type of things, and ufology is such a big area as well. And I think in one way or another, a lot of things are all linked together. Here in the UK, we've got a brilliant researcher and ufologist, Paul Sinclair, and he's out in the field all the time, and he comes across very similar things to what you just explained there. I mean, are you describing the Skinwalker Ranch, or
that general? I guess it would be, yes, the Uinta Basin area, the general area there surrounding that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Skinwalker Ranch is on an old Indian plot, isn't it? Where the Indians lived, going way back. So there's a lot of history there of what has actually gone on, and places people probably shouldn't go or build on, or whatever. And all around the world, every single country in the world can probably come up with a similar sort of place where weird and wonderful things happen, And like you said, I think in some way, a lot of these things, I mean, you can look at Bigfoot and the Yeti, and all over the world it's called different names, but I do believe they're, a multi-dimensional being as well, and it's all part of things that we don't 100% understand and we're trying to grasp. So, yeah, I do believe they're all linked in one way or another.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask your opinion of the force that you mention in your book. It's, at least to me when I was reading it, it seems very similar to a lot of what Hollywood has portrayed in, for example, the Star Wars films, that there is this force out there, and that your ability to work with it is, for all intents and purposes, to us humans, seen as literally magic.
Magic again is that word to something that we don't understand, and then it goes back to, like we discussed earlier, about gods being, ETs on a higher level of knowledge and experience to what we are, and they know how to manipulate their surroundings, they know how to levitate things, they'll know how to mind read with people, telepathy, etc. And it could come across as being some kind of force, and Hollywood, they're very good at actually going down that road of bringing things out that will make you think about what you're actually watching, and do. I mean, a good example is going back to my early days watching TV, and I was always interested in Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, and anything E.T. or unexplained. I used to buy the magazines, the unexplained magazines, and read books. And one of the TV shows I used to watch was Doctor Who. That's been around as long as I can remember, Doctor Who. But the theory of that is this TARDIS that can travel in time and space. Now, somebody has obviously thought of that. The writers have actually produced it into a TV show. Whether that's really good imagination, but we're actually talking about that now. We're actually going down those things. So whether that's planting the seeds through Hollywood and TV, it's all very clever and all probably part of some sort of programming if you actually think about it.
Yeah, it does seem that way. They seem to have their pulse onto something, and it what that is, it's amazing the accuracy of a lot of Hollywood's injections into the populace. I mean, here's Star Trek, we had these communicators that would flip, and now we had the flip phone, and then we had, these. It seems like technology is following Hollywood's cues, or it's just very difficult. It's very difficult to, is art imitating life, or is life imitating art, as so often is the case historically. And I know that you're a busy guy. I know that I want to appreciate all your time that you've devoted to the subject, your works of literature, your overall knowledge of analysis, and being one of the premier analysts of photographic evidence worldwide. Jason, I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast. Where can listeners keep up with your work and support all you've done?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. If anybody needs to contact me with regards to a sighting or to analyse an image or footage for them, they can contact me via my Facebook page, and also on Twitter, etc., which is called UF Only. It's all there. They can contact me through that page, and I can help them as much as I can with the analysis side. If I can't help them with something related, I can certainly pass them on to somebody in the field who can help them. And my two books are both available, UFO Photo and my new book, The Ufology Umbrella, and they're both available on Amazon, and also through Philip Mantle's publishing company, Flying Disc Press.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I wholeheartedly appreciate you, and be blessed. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Man, oh man. Jason Gleaves. Stand-up guy. A hero to us all. They just don't get much more passionate and precise than Jason. It's no wonder he's with the Flying Disc Press. It's one of my favorite publishers on the planet, and it should be one of yours too. And it's no wonder why his books, his lectures, and his ability to cut through the muck like a hot knife through butter is so appreciated in the field. One of the great ones for sure. The time he's devoted to the subject, his works of literature, his knowledge of photographic analysis, it's made him one of the go-to guys when you need a UFO image analyzed in a professional manner. Jason Gleaves is a true hero. If you guys want to hear more true heroes, more high strangeness than you can shake a stick at, please go to heroparanormal.com or heroparanormal.podbean.com, become a patron, become an insider, donate, and go to Hero Paranormal on YouTube and subscribe. That way you'll know every time another one comes out. Jason mentioned whether or not we're going to have Calvin Parker on the podcast, and I can attest, and I can say he is scheduled, so keep an eye out for that one. Until next time, heroes, keep your eyes to the skies, feet on the ground, but don't forget to take a look around.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like it need Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like